So, what's your fancy? Ladies, how about
Good
meeting
morning,
a
Facebook. I know you haven't seen us in a while, but thankfully we're back and we're up and running and we're ready to continue to provide you with vital information that you need as it relates to your mental health. And this morning is no different. Just want to say to a happy Easter to everyone. I hope everybody's enjoying their Easter holiday. And I want to say a great big thank you to our partner, Richie's Calypso, down there in the Churchill Square. We know that Richie's has been in business for over 40 years. And they have all of your footwear needs, starting from infant sizes straight up to size 15. So check out Richie's. Let's support our businesses. Go down there, let Rhonda and the girls hook you up. And again, thanks to Richie's for always supporting us. I see you, Tonette. Hey, you tuned in early, eh? How you doing? How you doing? So this morning we're going to address something that we've not actually addressed before. Most of you who keep up with the show or are familiar with my story, you know that I have spoken a lot about my personal experiences with mental health, the anxiety, the depression. But in addition to that, you know, there are a lot of other mental illnesses out there. And I think as a community, we really need to continue to bring more awareness to it. And in keeping with that mandate that I feel the Lord has laid on my heart to do, I have with me in studio today a counselor, someone that has a degree in psychology, someone that's going to give us a little bit more information as it relates to mental illnesses in the community. It's the first time that we actually have, um, for lack of a better word, a professional in studio, you know, actually giving us a bit more insight because I think so many times we shrug off mental health and we think that it doesn't exist or that, okay, you're having a spiritual attack or whatever we may use to shrug it on the side and act as if it's really not a real issue. But this morning, we're going to seek to give you some information from a medical perspective as to really what mental health is all about. And I'm just going to say good morning and welcome to Pastor John Wild Goose.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here
Yes,
on
yes.
Facebook.
Good, good. Now, I'm going to let John tell you exactly. I know, John, that you are very familiar with mental health, that you're a counselor, that you have degrees in certain aspects of mental health, and I'm just going to ask you to tell us what they are.
Well, thank you, first of all, for introducing me as a pastor. That's what I am, a pastor. So my training is in theology. However, in my undergrad, I have a concentration in psychology, and I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. So I consider myself a pastor. Well, I'm a bishop, I guess, if you want to use
Oh, a
that kind of
bishop. Okay,
terminology.
bishop.
But
Okay.
I just call myself a pastor.
Right,
All right.
right,
I'm
right.
actually the superintendent of the Bahamas District Church of the Nazarene.
Right, right.
However, as a pastor, to me, addressing the whole slate of issues that people present is a part of ministry.
Right.
And many times we forget that ministering to people is more than just ministering to their spiritual needs. We have to minister to their physical needs, their emotional needs, their societal needs, their academic needs, and their mental needs. So even though I'm a pastor, I'm also a therapist, I'm an educator in the in the high school area, and also a lecturer of psychology, various fields of psychology at the college level.
Right. And this is interesting because I don't know, some of you may know and then some of you don't know, but John and I, we're good friends. And we have been friends when we were kids. And John was actually the first one to bring to my attention that I was actually having a mental condition because I had become so broken. I just picked up the phone one day and I called him. Somehow I remembered that he did the psychology and that he was a counselor. And he was the first person that actually said the word anxiety to me and actually started to help me put a name to what I was going through. So, he played a big role in my journey. So I really appreciate the fact that even as a pastor, that he understands the whole gamut of a person's mental well-being. Because unfortunately, and I hate to say it, John, but unfortunately, especially I have found my personal experience
Okay.
in the church that a lot of times mental health is not really recognized.
Kind of
In some
over spiritualize it.
Yeah, like
Okay.
you go and they say, well, you just need to go and pray about it. And if you have
Yes.
faith and you believe, and not that that in and of itself is incorrect,
Of course.
but I know for me, being a Christian now for many years, it was really, really difficult. And that just was not enough.
Well, I certainly understand your concern. And, as a pastor, I don't have a conflict, being a therapist or being a counselor or really tapping into psychological interventions.
Right.
Of course, I certainly believe in God. I believe in His power to heal, deliver, set free. However, if we really look at it honestly, there are many issues that people face. Persons may believe God, but they might have issues with their blood pressure. All right. However, they can take their medication, or they might have some imbalance or need some regulation of their insulin. And we allow them to take medication. We pray, we believe God, but when it comes down to mental issues,
Right.
somehow we might have imbalances that may lead to certain kinds of mental issues. But when we think of seeking professional help, or even though I don't really push for medication, but sometimes medication is needed to help the person, because just as there might be irregularities in your blood or in your sugar, your blood pressure, your sugar, there might be imbalances in your brain, chemical imbalances. I don't want to get too scientific or
Yeah.
biological about it, but
Right.
I don't know if you remember about neurotransmitters.
Right.
You don't remember? Well,
I've heard
you've
a
heard
lot
about it.
that because of what I've been going through.
All right, so there might be an imbalance of neurotransmitters, those chemicals in the brains, like dopamine or serotonin. And sometimes these would lead to persons experiencing schizophrenia or depression or anxiety. And along with prayer and believing God, we go to the doctor, and God can use medical or psychiatric interventions as a part of the healing process. So for me, I don't see the conflict.
Right.
Sometimes we pray and we believe God, but sometimes, there's other kinds of interventions, be it medical or psychological.
So to be clear,
Uh-huh.
a lot of mental illnesses, not all, but a lot of them can actually be linked to a physical component.
Of course, yes. And this is why we have persons such as psychiatrists, and they're trained.
But a lot of people feel like, oh, especially black people, we don't go to psychiatrists. They're a waste of time, waste of money. What do you say to that?
I'm saying that we're doing ourselves an injustice, honestly. And the whole idea of counseling to many of us as Bahamians,
Right.
we're not even talking about mental illness.
No, counseling period. We don't believe in it.
Oh, no.
We don't believe in it.
Especially our men, there might be
Yeah,
situations
you may
in
be
the
able
home,
to, yes.
and sometimes you just need to talk to someone, and I don't need to talk to anyone.
No, black people don't need to talk to nobody.
Oh, so it's just the black people.
The black, not only Bahamians, not only Bahamians, it's the black community, because even in America, it's the
Okay.
same concept.
Wow.
I was watching, I don't know if you ever watched that show, Blackish.
Nah,
Anyway.
I've seen it.
Yeah, anyway, it's about a black family. And it was the same thing. He was going through some stuff and he's like, oh, no, black people don't go to therapy.
Oh, goodness.
So this is something that is renowned in the black community.
Wow.
And I think that in some ways it's really, really not helping us. And people are being forced to suffer in silence. Now, in your experience as a therapist, as a counselor on the island, what do you find to be some of the more prevalent mental health conditions in the community.
Well, you might find this surprising. A lot, we don't hear a lot about this, but in my experience, just being here on the island and being a part of this community, there's a disorder called antisocial personality disorder.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry for using those kinds of terminologies.
Right. Yeah,
but
give me that in layman terms. Break that down, Pastor.
that's basically someone who has no care about the rights of others, about morals, about others' feelings or concerns. So it's almost impossible for you to feel the hurt or discomfort of others. And that person is so much into him or herself that they will do anything that they want to do, that they have to do to get what they want, even if it's killing, stealing, deceiving, manipulating others. And if you look at much of the criminal element in the Bahamas, a lot of those persons are suffering from that disorder. They don't care anything about you. They're only into themselves. So to me, if you look at the amount of crime we have in the country, now a lot of people don't think of that as a disorder, but it.
Right,
but a
because
lot,
I'm thinking, as you're speaking,
they're just criminals, right?
No, what I'm thinking is good old selfishness.
No.
You're just selfish.
Well,
You're not
when it
concerned
comes
about
to
others. You're
but when it
concerned
comes to
about
the
you.
place that you cannot function normally in society, that's when it's considered a disorder. But I just thought I would throw that out there because of the criminal element.
Yeah,
There are a lot of people suffering. Besides that, here in the Bahamas, there are a lot of issues relative to sexual and gender identity disorders. We're finding a lot of that.
Sexual
and gender identity.
Okay, break it down. Break it down.
Persons who believe, hey, I'm born in the wrong body, I should be a female, even though I'm born a male, or a male, even though I'm born
And
a
that is
female.
prevalent here.
Yeah, that's happening a lot here. You don't go on Facebook. It's very prevalent here.
Okay.
And I don't know if that is the result of social learning of what we see happening in America. But we're having a prevalence of persons with that presenting problem. And then to me, after that would be anxiety disorder. And you know oh too well,
Too well. Too well.
you know, the pressures that come along with the fear.
It's terrible. I think it's the most horrible thing a human being can experience in life.
Wow.
No, I mean, serious. You know, I've had some stuff happen in life, but I think this is the worst experience that I've ever had. Because I think what makes anxiety so bad, it strips you of your life. The fear becomes so real, it becomes so overwhelming that you find yourself not able to do anything. You find yourself not able to enjoy life. You're so afraid of everything around you, of every situation. And it's just terrible. It's terrible. I think the worst thing about it is the fact that it strips you of living.
Wow.
That's how I look at it.
Wow.
Because, you know, you should be able to enjoy your life. You should be able to enjoy the blessings that God has given you. And it strips you of all that joy. Because you're so overcome and so overwhelmed with the fear.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, I'm finding that a lot of our Bahamian women.
Yes, so am I. And that is one of the reasons, John, that this show was even birthed.
Okay.
Because what actually happened is the more I started to open up about what I was experiencing, the more people started to contact me. The more, especially women, opened up and admitted that, you know what, I'm going through that.
Wow.
Or I would have been through that. Or whatever the case may have been. And I realized that there are so many persons experiencing it, and no one is talking about it. No one is talking about it. And, you know, you're lost because you're going through this. You feel like you're losing your mind. And you don't know what to do. You don't know how to get help.
Wow.
You don't even know what's going on with you. And I think for me, going through that and you know, I'm still on my journey.
Mm-hmm.
It just made me feel like I have to do something because it's such a horrible experience, and my heart aches to know that people are actually going through that without any type of support, without knowing what's going on or anything like that.
And that's you know, that's your personal experience, and I know it is debilitating to you.
It
But
is
that's
at
the
times.
cost of, you know, all mental illnesses. It's a horrible experience, very horrible experience. And, you know, even with mood disorders here, you know, depression, we're getting a lot more cases of persons dealing with depression. Let me just say that depression is not just feeling sad. A lot of times,
Please tell them, okay?
yeah, it's not
Please
just
tell
feeling
them.
sad. It's to the point
Please
that you
tell them.
can't function, and and it does not have to be the result of anything bad happening. You know, sometimes you speak to someone that's depressed, and they're like, I can't tell you, you know, what went wrong, or nothing happened. There was no tragedy. You know, it's just
Yeah, there was no crisis.
exactly no crisis in their life, just an overwhelming feeling of worthlessness,
Yes.
helplessness,
Yes.
suicidal thoughts,
Yes.
inability to get up and go on with life to the point that you
Yes.
can't function.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and when we have persons going through stuff like anxiety and depression, you need professional help. Someone just called me and asked, what advice should I give a young man that believes, you know, who feels depressed? I said, get him professional help. You know, I know you want to help, but try to refer them to someone who is trained in the area to help them. All right, so mood disorders is another issue that we're addressing.
Yeah.
And then psychotic disorders, you know, we're going to be talking a little about psychotic disorders and vagrancy, like schizophrenia. You know, if you just drive down the streets
Downtown.
of Freeport, go downtown, you see such a high prevalence of persons suffering with schizophrenia. That's a
Okay.
reality among us, you know, and these are people who belong to people. People love these people. You know, we just call them Joneses, and we laugh at them, we scorn them, but they're people.
So when you say schizophrenia, a lot of people, I mean me, I don't know much about it myself. I have a general idea. Like, list some of the things that, as a professional, you would say classifies a person as as having schizophrenia.
Well, before I speak of the symptoms, let me just give a disclaimer because, you know, when I studied psychology,
Right.
and we did a course called Abnormal Psychology, this is the book right here. I decided to bring this book.
Okay.
All right, this is the book here that we had to study. If you go through this book, mental disorder after mental disorder. I got to the point, I told the lecturer, listen, they just wacko. Stop putting all these terminologies. So my disclaimer is that even if I mention something that sounds familiar to you on your experience,
Right.
you know, don't self-diagnose, because you need to go to a professional
Right.
that would have to interview, speak to your family,
Right.
and you would have to meet a particular criteria
Right.
to be diagnosed with a mental disorder. It's not just having this feeling or that experience, all right? So I just wanted to give that disclaimer. I don't want
Okay.
anyone to, I don't want you in particular to think, I wonder if I'm heading there, or anyone else, you know, to become anxious as I give some of these symptoms, all right, of schizophrenia.
So just want to say a shout out to Dee Dee and Joanne. Thanks for tuning in, ladies. I see you. I see you.
All right, so so schizophrenia, like all mental illnesses, really affects the day-to-day functioning of the individual. So the person is not able to function on a job, have normal family relationships, normal social relationships, take care of his or her basic needs. So, so when we speak of debilitating, or when we speak of disrupting normal functioning,
Right.
that's when you need to consider a mental disorder, when you're not able to function
Yeah, when it
properly.
interferes with your day-to-day life, eh?
Yes, that you
Yeah.
can't live a normal life like
Right.
you used to live.
Right,
All
right.
right? So here are some of the symptoms of schizophrenia. For example, delusions. These are false belief. So you have delusions and you have hallucinations. So delusions are false belief, which can take many forms, such as delusions of persecution. Like I was dealing with a young man who believed that the Bahamas government in particular was out to get him.
Okay.
And he would see signs in the house. He came home and he said he put something there and it ended up over there. He said they were in the house. Someone was out to get him.
Okay.
All right, so those are delusions of persecution. All
Okay.
right, a lot of times you prescribe medication to these persons, and guess why they're not going to take the medication? Someone is trying to poison them.
Right.
All right,
Oh,
so
boy.
delusions, and then
Boy.
you have hallucinations.
Yeah.
All right, hallucinations are really sensory perceptions that are not real. So you walk downtown or you go to the gas station and you see someone having a big old conversation.
Yes, I have actually seen that.
Big conversation. Sometimes they're rowing the person. Sometimes they're bursting out in laughter. They just having a good old conversation. Sometimes they're cussing and fighting and rowing at someone. They're hearing voices. All right, so that's an audible hallucination. They're hearing voices, so they're having a conversation. So as real as I am to you right now, I usually use this example. Imagine that all of what you see now and hear now is not real, but this is in your mind, that you're sitting here having this conversation when in fact you're by the gas station sitting up talking to me, but I'm not there, and everyone is looking around like, who is she talking to? But in your mind, you're sitting here, you're looking beautiful, you're intellectual, and we're having this conversation.
Okay.
That's how real it is to them.
Oh, wow.
So there are also visual hallucinations, seeing things
That are not there.
that are not there. They also feel things, tactile delusions. They smell things and taste things. So the entire conglomerate of senses are affected.
So, okay. When you spoke about those symptoms, right? Of course, I can think of a few guys, especially downtown, that exhibit those symptoms. And one of the things we wanted to address with this show this morning is, you know, we look at the people downtown, like you said, we call them Joneses, we call them vagrants. We really sometimes don't give it a second thought, right? And for me personally, I don't do that anymore because going through what I've been going through, I realize that there's a thin line. And I can see how a person who is totally sane, totally in charge of all their mental faculties can actually lose it. I could actually see that. So I don't look at them the way I used to look at them
Exactly.
because of my personal experience. And what I wanted us to focus on a bit this morning is the fact that a lot of vagrants are suffering from mental illnesses. And as a community, maybe we can start to view them a little differently, you know. And is there any other? It's obvious that based on what you said, a lot of them are suffering from schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Are there any other mental illnesses that could cause a person to become a vagrant? And I say that because obviously when we say vagrant, the person, they don't seem to be in this realm. They're past the point of taking care of themselves, bathing, living somewhere, working. They're not doing any of those things. They kind of just seem to be surviving. I don't even know how they survive sometimes when I look at them. Because you can tell that they have not had a bath. You don't know when last they had a meal, whatever the case may be. Schizophrenia is a main culprit, you would say.
Yes, from what I've seen here on the island. But let me just clarify that vagrancy doesn't always mean mental illness. From a policing point of view, a vagrant is anyone that lives or positions him or herself in a public area that they shouldn't be. But here in the Bahamas, here on this island in particular, We're just saying that most of the persons who are vagrants, from my experience, from walking and driving around the island, most of them suffer from mental illnesses. And I would say that the main culprit, as you said, is schizophrenia. But there are so many psychotic disorders. They may not qualify, or they may not be, cannot be rightfully diagnosed as being schizophrenic, but there are so many other psychotic disorders that they might be suffering from. It might be drug-induced psychosis, for example.
Right, right. I was about to ask, because we do, you know, we use our terminology, Joneses. A lot of them do seem to get to that point because of drug addiction.
Exactly. And you know, sometimes we try to glamorize certain drugs, but, you know, there are cases when someone just takes one pull of marijuana and that person goes into psychosis, you know, and they are never the same again. And why that happens, we don't know. Certain persons just have a disposition. It could be because of genetics. It could be because of environmental issues, familial issues. Certain people, medical issues. Certain people just have a disposition. So you sit around and everyone is smoking the same marijuana. And a lot of young men like to say, oh, she got laced, because if you look around the island.
Yeah, I've heard that term before.
And lacing is just adding other drugs to the marijuana. But if you look around the island, they're blaming lacing on, you know, on so much of the psychosis we see here. You see beautiful young ladies.
Yes.
I just saw one at the gas station, a beautiful young lady, and I could see that she was out of her mind.
Oh,
and someone said she got laced.
yeah.
Not knowing that you don't need to be laced. You may just have a disposition towards mental illness, and you smoke that marijuana once, and you're never the same again. I have a first cousin right there in my rock. He was an outstanding young man, bilingual, always dressed beautifully. And he smoked marijuana one time, and he is a Joneser today with all of his potential.
Right, right.
You know, so there could be a number of mental illnesses that our vagrants
So what
may suffer
actually
from.
happens sometimes, it seems, based on what you're saying, is if the person unknowingly, because they probably wouldn't even realize it, has a disposition to a mental illness, taking drugs can actually be the catalyst
Exactly.
to bring it on.
Exactly. And sometimes too, when persons are getting treatment and they go ahead and they try a drug like marijuana or LSD, they can revert to the state of psychosis. Yes, so drug use, we call it drug-induced psychosis, or cannabis, which is marijuana, is what most of our people try here. Cannabis-induced psychosis, you know, could be one of the main reasons why some of our persons are becoming vagrants as well, and going insane,
Yeah.
and walking the streets.
Yeah.
Every day you see them.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention too that one of the other symptoms would be disorganized behavior. So you would see the person acting in a certain kind of way, taking off the clothes in public.
Right.
Did you see, you know, persons are doing that now?
Yeah.
I've gotten at least 3 videos
Yeah, I actually
of
saw
women
a video.
walking naked.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we don't know the story behind them. I'm not saying it's schizophrenia, but obviously it's a mental illness.
Yeah, something is wrong.
If you're walking the street buck naked, reading a book and quoting, or taking off your clothes in public,
Yeah.
you know, so a lot of disorganized behavior sometimes. There are certain, we call it catatonic schizophrenia. That's when they kind of hold a position. Like I remember walking downtown, there was this older guy that used to be downtown with a big beard, and he would just kind of freeze,
Oh my goodness.
and then he would just jump, and the kids would just laugh. And he used to do this as well, all day, just doing this. We don't know why he's doing that, but that again is another symptom. Disorganized speech.
Right.
You can't have a normal conversation,
Right.
topic to topic, and it all seems disjointed. But in their minds, I don't know, it's making sense
to them.
but it's just disjointed, one thing to the other. You know, those are some of the symptoms. There are others, but those are some of
The main
yes.
ones. Okay, all right. Okay, because I wanted to mention that, you know, so often we see the vagrants and to me, it seems like it's becoming more and more of a problem. And I think we kind of just toss them aside and say, oh, well, that person just out of their mind. I think Bahamians actually have such a lax and such a nonchalant disposition towards mental illnesses. Even when they see someone, you know, it's just, oh, Charlie crazy, she crazy. And this person was not crazy a year ago. This person was not crazy 2-3 years ago. But we just kind of just toss it aside and just say, oh, they're just crazy. And that's one of the things that I want people to see, that there's a story there behind each vagrant that you even see downtown. There is a story behind how they got where they got, and we have to be careful because, you know, boy, you ain't past nothing till you're dead. And a lot of times, you know, if you go back far enough, you may discover that the person actually suffered from mental health. And I think what's so bad about it is it was not addressed. And that is what is so bad about it, because in not addressing it, the person did not receive the help that they needed.
Exactly.
And what happened now was they continued in this downward spiral until they got to that point. And the bad part about it, it seems to me, when they get to that point, it's so hard to get them back to who they would have been before. You see?
Most of the times, it's, I mean, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but most of the times it's quite difficult for that person. You know, we believe in the power of God to heal. He can heal, but it's really difficult, you know, and, you know, I feel so much for the families out there.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about that.
Really feel for the families.
Yeah, because like you said, it's someone's brother, it's someone's child, it's someone's uncle, it's someone's dad. You know what I mean? And I just feel like as a community, we need to do better. I think that we need to stop trivializing mental health. I think that we need to stop pushing it aside, because I actually think that a lot of times we take the easy road. When I say that, you have a family member and they start to exhibit some of these signs. You realize that, you know what, this is not normal, right? What this person is doing is uncharacteristic of them, but you kind of do nothing about it and kind of just hope that, okay, let's hope that this works itself out. So, or you just make comments like, child, you ain't see that person, she losing it, you know, she losing it. Okay, she wasn't losing it before. So what is different now? And how can you as a friend, how can you as a mother, how can you as a spouse even, how can you come to the aid of this person to get them the help that they need?
Exactly, and this is why, you know, shows like this and platforms like this are so important.
Yeah.
People need to be educated.
Yes.
That, you know, of the signs and the options available to really bring assistance to these persons.
Right.
You know, and, you know, I believe people try, but sometimes when, as you said, the downward spiral begins, you might do all in your power to help that person, but the person refuses help. You know, and we all have human rights. You know, so I understand what you're saying, but there are a lot of families that really try to help these people,
and they just
and they refuse their help.
Wow. So okay,
Or they become frustrated.
Yeah, yeah. So on that note, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be back in a minute. So stay tuned.
So, what's your fancy? Ladies, how about medium and wide with dress pumps, sling bags, flats, wedges, sandals, tennis, nursing shoes, career kicks, and Crocs? Men, check out our dress and casual shoes, tennis, cleats, sandals, work boots, and water shoes. And for children, dress shoes, casual, school shoes, tennis, cleats, sandals, ballet, jazz, christening, and bedroom shoes. So complete your look at Richie's Calypso, your #1 family-friendly footwear store. Love is always new and exciting at
Good morning again, Facebook. Welcome back. Welcome back. And for those of you who are just joining us, I have in studio with me Pastor John Wagus, who's also a certified therapist, who's a counselor, who has a degree in psychology. And we have been discussing the many different mental illnesses and the fact that mental illness is indeed a very, very big problem here in our community. And that we need to bring more awareness to this. And we need to really be more proactive as a people, as opposed to reactive, so that we can help ourselves and we can help those our loved ones that may be going through these things. I just want to say a quick thank you again to Richie's Calypso for sponsoring the show today. Always an avid supporter. So thank you, Rhonda. And as we continue with the conversation, John, what are some of the effects before we go into? Because I really want to find out some ways in which we can help. But what are some of the effects, would you say, that mental illness and vagrancy has on our community? Like, what are some of the negative effects?
Well, I spoke to someone in social services, and I think it would be a good idea to really get all of these agencies together, because so many agencies are involved if we're going to really affect change in our community and personal lives and families regarding schizophrenia.
Right.
But to most people, a schizophrenic vagrant or Joneser is firstly just an eyesore, and that's what most people see it as, someone to skin your nose at, someone to hold your breath when you walk by them, someone to go on the other side of the road, someone to roll your windows up or put your windows up when they come to your car to ask you for $1. So the person is just a nuisance and an eyesore.
Yeah, they really are a nuisance.
But these persons are sick, and a lot of them have drug problems, and a lot of them need to eat, and a lot of them need your money to support their drug problems.
Right.
So besides that, we are also a tourist destination.
Yeah.
And could you imagine a tourist being approached
yeah,
by a vagrant?
And it's kind of odd because it's one of the reasons, I don't like downtown proper, because whenever you go downtown, but my daughter, no joke, she's just afraid to go downtown, period. Because whenever you go downtown, somehow you're going to have a couple encounters, and you could actually have a couple encounters in one day. So it's unfortunate that downtown seems to have become a haven for them, more or less. And they really do become a nuisance to the community.
But again, these are people. And I know we're being real here.
Yes.
But even as I speak of, I use the word nuisance, I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's someone's son. That's someone's daughter. That's someone's husband. That's someone's wife. Someone's niece, someone's nephew. Someone loves that person.
Yes.
Yes. So, even though they might be a nuisance and an eyesore, in our society, think too of the family. It affects the family. Could you imagine driving down the road and seeing someone that you brought up, God forbid, driving down the road and to see my son on the side of the road, and I've tried to do everything in my power, but he's refused it. So imagine the stress on the family, and then the family then to receive all the ridicule. Oh, they should be able to do better than that. His brothers and sisters, and that's their mommy, and they, and you really don't understand what a lot of these families have to go through on a daily basis, or what they have gone through. And, they just become frustrated.
Yeah.
So imagine the impact on the family unit.
Yeah.
So socially, this problem of vagrancy and mental illness and vagrancy affects us on many, many different tiers.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Nora. I see you tuning in. Nora's Island AA. Nora's a regular supporter.
Yes.
Okay. Well, now that we have seen that mental illness is definitely very prevalent in our community, there's just no skirting around that. And it can be more than just, okay, you need to go and pray. Like you said earlier, it's linked to a physical component in some cases.
Could be.
And, you know, we don't think of that. But how now can we help? You know, that's my thing. How can I help a loved one who may be schizophrenic, who may be bipolar? We didn't talk about bipolar. Who may be going through depression. How can I help? I mean, what can I do? Because a lot of times I think people don't know what to do. You know, they just don't know what to do. And I could see why, because, you know, how do you help this person?
Person right in your home displaying these kinds of
Yeah,
behaviors,
what
talking to themselves.
Yeah, what can you do?
Well, I mean, yes, we believe in prayer. We believe in the power of God to heal, deliver, and set free. You know, so yes, I believe in praying, you know, and I believe that God can heal, but I believe God can also use psychology and psychiatry. And by the way, a psychologist and a psychiatrist both study psychology, but a psychiatrist is a medical doctor
Okay.
who has training in psychology.
Oh, okay. I
All
was
right.
supposed to ask you that
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
The
A lot of
difference
people
between-
don't know the difference.
Right,
All right.
right.
So psychologists, sometimes you need psychological intervention, which means psychotherapy, talking to the person, you know, really getting down to the root, cognitive, meaning mental or behavioral issues, treating those kinds of things, and then the psychiatrist then would prescribe medication and kind of help the person medically through the process. So yes, I believe in prayer, but we need to seek professional
John,
help.
where do we go to seek this?
Well, we do have psychological services at the Rand Memorial Hospital. You know, if you can't get there, find a qualified therapist,
But I don't know
psychiatrist,
any
a
on
doctor.
the island. That's why I'm asking you, because I have been looking, and I don't know any on the island. I can't find a therapist that I could actually go in and say, okay, I need to see a therapist, I need to see a psychiatrist, I need to see a psychologist.
Well, social services, you know, would have contacts, psychological services at the hospital would have contacts, even the police should have contact. Because all of these persons are stakeholders in addressing the issue of vagrancy on the island. You know, so go ahead and get help. Just refer them to a guidance counselor. Even if you find a guidance counselor, refer the person to a guidance counselor if you see signs, and the guidance counselor can then refer to the relevant professional to offer assistance.
Okay.
All right. Now, as I mentioned before, there are certain agencies that are here in the Bahamas that basically, if they come together, can help address the issue of vagrancy, especially here on our island. You know, the police has a role to play in that, right?
No.
Yeah. Vagrancy is a crime.
I know, but I look at it like this, that the police come or they lock them up, they're not really helping them. You know what I mean? That's not real tangible help.
This is why I believe that, you know, this is a societal issue, and I believe that we all need to come together. You know, so if the penal code that the police uses only addresses sane persons who exhibit vagrant behaviors in the community, you know, what do they do with the person who is psychotic?
Yeah.
You know, so the penal code needs to reflect this. But if the penal code is just dealing with the person who is selling things or begging tourists or living under the bridge,
Yeah.
we're not really addressing the problem. And I'm not saying I'm a professional as it pertains to the law and vagrancy. I mean, I've read that aspect of the penal
I
code.
can see it being a problem, John. It's a vexing issue for police. Hey, Bridge, Annette, thank you all for tuning in. I saw Angie earlier as well. Thank you for tuning in. Please share the video. This is valuable information that we want to get out to everybody, you know, so that we can really take mental health more serious. I saw that they just did something downtown. Did you see that? They
What's
did
that?
some paint murals Yeah, on the wall where Pantry Pride used to be.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
talking about little quotes about mental health.
Oh, that's wonderful. I wonder who
Yeah.
did that.
I think they were on the news. I don't remember the name, but they were on the news. So it does seem like there does seem to be a bit of an awareness starting to happen. The conversation seems to have gotten started,
Yes.
which is a good thing. But I know that you suggested what we can do professionally
Yes.
as it relates to helping.
Refer them.
Right. What can we do from our end? I mean, let's say, um, I can't find a professional.
You know,
What do I do? I mean,
that's a tough question because you're almost asking me, what do you do if your mother has hypertension? And you're not a qualified doctor.
right.
You know, so I can't overstress how important it is to refer. You know, I mentioned the police, but as you said, you know, just locking up the person is not going to help.
No, tomorrow they're right back on the streets.
Exactly. And besides the police, we have social services. And I do know that social services is doing all that they can in their power to do. They provide housing sometimes, clothing sometimes, food sometimes. But a lot of these vagrants do not want what is being offered to them by
No.
social services.
Right, because I think murals done by Elisa Struther.
Oh, we know her.
Yeah.
We know her.
They said BMES. Oh, BMES, our teacher, and the students at BMES.
Oh, great
yeah.
job.
Yeah, it's nice. It's
Okay.
nice. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
What was I saying again?
I tried. We over 40.
I remember. Yeah, so I'm saying social service does offer the assistance, you know, but if these persons are not clothed in their right mind,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
they're not going to submit themselves to that help. So this is why I'm saying that the agencies need to come together.
Yeah.
The police needs to join forces with social services, needs to join forces with the church, needs to join forces with psychological services at the hospital. And
That's true.
did I say the Port Authority?
No.
Yeah, Port Authority. All these agencies, we need to come together and we really need to address this holistically. Because it's not just a criminal matter.
No, it's not at all. I don't think it's a criminal matter at all. Because if a person is out of their mind, how can they be held responsible for their actions? You know, but I guess what I'm trying to get at too as well is that as a community, as a family, as a spouse, as a brother or sister, I think that we need to take the mental health more seriously.
I think so.
Because I think that by the time a person gets to a state of vagrancy, they're at the bottom of the pit.
Exactly.
And it didn't happen overnight.
You're exactly right. It's progressive.
And yes, it's progressive. And I think that's why I said, how can we actually help as the loved ones of those that we may see experiencing something, or even if we ourselves are experiencing something, you know, what should we do? Because I keep thinking, I think of a case that I know of somebody, and this lady was seen all of her life. And then she just started doing weird stuff.
Yeah.
You know, becoming aggressive,
Oh, yeah.
saying a lot of nasty stuff to her husband, to her family members. And, you know, everybody kind of just said, I noticed that a lot of the people around her, oh, she's just losing her mind. Or, child, I don't know, you see how she's carrying on? But nobody was really taking the time to, even if they had to do it forcibly. Because a lot of times, like you say, the person who is having a mental problem, sometimes they won't even admit that they're having a mental problem. And that's where you, as a family member, where it becomes a problem for you. Because if the person doesn't admit it, but I think sometimes even the person needs to be forcibly taken out of the situation. And this particular situation that I'm telling you about, in the end, she lost her marriage. And I truly feel that the husband just did not actually acknowledge.
Yeah.
He knew stuff was wrong, and they were saying, they were making casual, cavalier comments like, child, you ain't see? She losing it. She ain't got all. But okay, they did nothing.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. I felt like they, and I know the person, I felt like they failed her because I don't feel like she had to lose her marriage and her life had to become, I mean, she still is surviving. I think she kind of ended up just trying to work through it herself, and I still don't think she is all there. But she has been forced to kind of, I look at her and she worked through that whole thing by herself. In the end, the marriage, the husband left. The marriage didn't work out, you know, and I just see that as us failing. And the thing is, she had a lot of people in her life. She had this husband who she had been with for a long time. You know, she had other family members. She had a mother. She had sisters. She had brothers. But to me, no one helped her.
Well, what does the Bible say? Because of a lack of knowledge,
Right.
people fail.
Right.
All right?
And that's what I want to get people to see.
So we need to become a bit more aware.
Yeah,
And
we need to, and not just, you know, people don't just lose their mind.
No, it's progressive.
Yeah.
And this is why we need to be aware, be sensitive to really what's going on, and pay close attention to what's being said here. You know, if you see signs,
Yes.
act on them. Because even if you think of some of the other mental and psychological issues that we address now from a knowledge base, for
Right.
example, the whole issue of autism. 20 years ago in the Bahamas, if someone had autism, we would just say, oh, he crazy or he retarded.
Retarded
And
is
it's
the
not
word they would use.
retardation.
Right.
It's something totally different.
Right.
You know, so this is why we need to become aware, pay attention to the telltale signs. You know, if the person is starting to hallucinate, you know, starting to have these delusions that someone is out to get them.
And you know what? I think that the person that I'm speaking to, I think that's how she started to imagine things that weren't there. I'm trying to read what Charmaine is saying. There definitely needs to be more infrastructure set up to deal with these issues which are now coming to light. That is, I'm in total agreement, Charmaine.
Exactly.
And we're hoping that the more the conversation is spoken about, because you know what's so bad about it is, but I use that as an example. But what is so bad about that is, listen, this girl, she was sane all her life, okay?
Exactly.
And she could have still, to me, been in a situation where she could have still had a family together. I just think that truly her mental condition was just kind of like
Thrown under the rug.
yeah,
And
somehow they expected it to just work itself out, and that never happened. And as a result, her life fell apart. And I just do not think that that had to happen. You know,
early intervention is the best cure.
that's what. Yeah.
So we need to intervene as soon as
And
possible.
I think we need to stop being afraid. I think sometimes we're afraid. You know, just want to say a shout out again to Richie's Calypso for sponsoring us today. Bridget says the truth about the whole issue with mental health is that we as a people, the screen went out. But anyway,
see it there.
we as a people think it's a shame to admit that their family member, has an issue. And that's
Thank you so
exactly,
much.
yeah, and Bridget, that's exactly what I was just touching on.
Yes.
You know, we just don't want to admit that there is a problem. And as a result of that, to me, I heard it before, when you do nothing, you still make a choice.
Exactly.
It's still a choice because you made a choice not to do nothing. And a lot of things, especially mental health, sweeping it under the rug is not going to help.
No.
It's actually just going to make it worse and worse. And you have families being destroyed that could have been together. You know what I mean? Stacy says, Stacy, in the Bahamas, we like to make a joke out of everything. Exactly. We don't take things seriously, which cause, I didn't get to finish reading, but this is my point, which cause people to be afraid and ashamed. And I agree, because, you know, it took a lot for me to come out and be open about my experience, because there was the fear in the back of my mind that, okay, people are going to look at Chrishna and they're going to say when they see me in the grocery store, when they see me up and about,
She crazy. Yeah.
Or, you know, even employment. You know, I work for myself, but You know, if I seek employment in the future, maybe no one's going to want to hire me. People are just going to look at me cross-eyed. And that was a fail. And, you know, I thought about it, but in the end, I just think that I just didn't care that deeply about that aspect of it to keep my mouth shut.
Before we acknowledge that someone is mentally ill, we'd rather say, oh, somebody fix her.
That's right. Yeah, and you have right.
You know, so what those listeners said is so important.
Yeah, and I think that's what we need to get across today, even before we get into the agencies. And I'm glad that you mentioned them. You know, again, social services. You said the psychology department of the RAND.
The police.
Yeah, well, I don't even, pun, but I look at the police as no big help. But I mean...
Say what?
I mean, not with this.
Oh, no, they're a major part of it. We all need to come together because I mean, if we're going to put an initiative in place, are you going to go there and collect them yourself? No, we're going to need.
You mean the vagrants?
Yes, we're going to need the police, so we're all a part of it. I wanted to know if I could mention a couple more of the telltale signs. I know that we're running short on time.
Yeah, go ahead, definitely. And people...
lack of motivation. Lack of motivation to the person loses his or her drive.
Right.
So everyday actions such as bathing, grooming, dressing becomes less important. All right. So if the person starts to neglect him or herself, then you know that you need to pay attention.
Yes.
All right. Poor expression of emotions.
Yeah.
All right. So the person is just emotionally flat all the time. Nothing is funny. Nothing is serious. Just emotionally flat.
Right.
All the time.
Right.
Social withdrawal.
Right.
With schizophrenia, the person usually pulls away from everyone.
But John, even apart from schizophrenia, a lot of the things you're mentioning also apply to anxiety and depression.
Exactly.
Because I recognize the signs and the symptoms because I would have experienced some of them personally. And of course, you know, I did a little research as well.
Yeah, they overlap.
So those ones,
they overlap.
Especially the lack of interest, the not bathing, the not wanting to socialize. I find even the ducking the friends, you know, friends can't catch up with you. They call on you, you're not answering your phone.
But do you see people and hear people? You see, so the hallucination.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
so
that this
they
also
overlap.
applies
Yeah, they overlap.
to depression because, you know, sometimes the schizophrenia can be more obvious, I think, to recognize because the symptoms kind of like
in your face.
In your face.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you have a loved one going through anxiety or depression, something a little less toned down, for lack of a better word, you may not recognize what's happening.
And that is why it's so important to refer to the professionals because you look at a criteria and, you know, as I said, we had to study this ridiculous book and you have to meet certain criteria to be diagnosed with a certain mental illness.
Right.
And sometimes the symptoms from one mental illness overlap with symptoms from other mental illnesses. But when you put the entire thing together, then we can properly diagnose you and offer you treatment specific to your mental challenge.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad that you said specific because as we're ending, I just want to put out there that mental illness is very intricate. And no one situation is the same, eh?
Never.
Right?
Even two schizophrenics are completely different.
Right. And this is where I think...
Many subtypes too.
And this is where the treatment comes in, I think, because sometimes people say, and I've experienced this, well, I did this, or I did that, or I didn't medicate, or I medicate, or I went to a therapist, I didn't go to a therapist.
Yeah. Humans are very dynamic.
Yes. And that's what I want to point out because you have to address your mental illnesses or condition individually, I find, and try and work with somebody to come up with what's best for you. Because someone else took medication, it doesn't mean you have to take medication.
Exactly.
Because they didn't take medication, it doesn't mean that you don't have to take medication.
Exactly.
Someone may have seen a therapist for 2 months. You may have to see a therapist for a year. I just want to, you know, say how complex it really is.
Definitely.
And that you have to treat each case
individually.
Yeah. So as we end, any parting words, anything that you want to say to our audience that you want to leave them with, Pastor?
Let's just educate ourselves. You know, awareness is the best thing that we can do at this time. And you know, this is really strong on my heart. And I believe that we need to come together as a community,
Yeah.
all of us, stakeholders, all those agencies, to really impact change as it relates specifically to vagrancy here in the Bahamas. So, you know, I'm just calling on all the powers that be to really open your hearts and minds to come together, work together to make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. And in closing, I just want to add also that, you know, when we look at something like vagrancy, a lot of times we need to look beyond. I think that's our problem. We're too cavalier. We're too easy to just say someone is crazy.
Joneser.
Yeah, we need to look beyond these things and try and figure out how we can help.
Yes.
Okay, so I hope that I have a family worker that works with social services, and tell you the truth, they as workers also need an outlet because what they go through
Definitely.
themselves. Yeah, that is very true. Me personally, I never ever want to work there. I can't take it. I can't take it.
Yeah.
So want to thank you all for tuning in. Please share this video. Pastor gave us a lot of information to digest. Sharing, awareness is the key. So thank you again for tuning into the show. Share the video. We will see you next week, God's willing. Same time, same place. Enjoy the rest of your Easter break. And have a great day.
So, what's your fancy? Ladies, how about medium and wide with dress pumps, sling bags, flats, wedges, sandals, tennis, nursing shoes, career kicks, and Crocs? Men, check out our dress and casual shoes, tennis, cleats, sandals, work boots, and water shoes. And for children, dress shoes, casual, school shoes, tennis, cleats, sandals, ballet, jazz, christening, and bedroom shoes. So complete your look at Richie's Calypso, your #1 family-friendly footwear store.